Welcome back to the Excellence Cartel. And we're still in lockdown. Yep. Still managing to be locked down. Today, I'm joined by the mighty Jeffrey Sue.
Hell yeah.
Ever sexy Jason Theobald. How are you guys doing today?
What's up? Not too bad. Well? Not too bad.
Okay. Sue, I'm going to kick it off with you this week because I've gone to Dad for a few times. Yeah, so I'm going to go over to you. Doesn't like pressure all the time. So
life is good, man. I've been continually signing new clients every week. Like I told you guys over text, that I had 2 more come on in the last couple of days. So I got to get a plan out tonight, and I have another one that I have to kind of work through. But dude, business has been great, and I'm super appreciative of it, humbled, surprised, thankful, however you want to describe it. But I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And so business is great. And then in terms of my own bodybuilding, Jason and I, we decided that, after this week, we're going to start, ramping up into off season, trying some new things. So I'm excited about that. I think I handled the last 8 weeks really well, was really on plan. And I'm really excited for the rest of this year just to improve. So all things are good with me, Jeff.
Sweet. How's the M4 doing?
So the guy who owns the shop, he's on Instagram, so he tagged me in the photo. So they ripped off the blue wrap already. They fixed it was a little scratch, a little dent in the panel. So they fixed that. They didn't have to buy a new panel.
Oh, nice.
That's good. I'm getting it wrapped. It's like a matte black, but they told me not to go completely matte because it scratches easily, especially the wrap. So it's almost like a muted black. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's very, very dark. And I think it's going to look really, really good when it's done. So I have my summer tires. I bought summer tires. They're shipped to the other shop that does the wraps. So they're going to bring the car to the other shop, and they're going to put it all together and detail it for me and everything. So it's good. So I've been driving the Bronco, which has been nice.
I bet seeing you in a Bronco is the best shit this side of Mississippi.
People don't expect it,
No, I definitely would not. I wish you would go out with a bandana on your face, actually, and some aviators or some real fucked up shit, and just harass people and be like, hey, have country music or something blaring. Taylor Swift. Well, good. I'm glad that that's getting healed up just nicely for you.
Yeah.
Jason, how are you doing? You're actually smiling today. This must be kind of a good day for you.
I'm always smiling. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Bullshit.
So yeah, it's been a good week. I'm over this, completely done. But what's cool about it is that our schedule's actually slowed down. I'm not taking Aiden to soccer on Wednesdays. I'm not having to run Maddox to Taekwondo on Tuesdays. And all these things happen around 5 to 6:30 at night. So we've been having more family dinners. So that's been cool. Whereas normally we're just coming and going, and I'm hitting the kitchen, and then Steph's hitting it another time. And so that's been kind of cool. The pool we got open and working, and the heater's on. And I had a nice day Saturday here in Kentucky. Sat at the pool for about 5 hours. Already got a nice tan.
Did you wear your mask at the pool?
Of course not. It's my pool, and I don't even wear masks when I go out in public.
I didn't know. Didn't know
how neighbors over too, kids. We are violating all the rules because they're fucking retarded at this point. This is the boogeyman. I went to Kroger. I didn't wear a mask.
How prideful were you? Were you
I had my shoulders high. I wore a tank in too, so I was Agnew walking around with no mask, just kind of smirking at all these people in fear. And they kind of looked at me, and I just looked back at them and hey man, I don't live in fear. It's just how I'm gonna roll. No one said anything to me, but I've heard people getting yelled at by other people, because they don't have their mask on, and it's have you read what the CDC has released? So, that was kind of weird going to Kroger. It's people are getting more and more fearful. And so there was more people with masks than ever, but we still in Kentucky don't have to wear them, and the store is not mandating them yet. We're not sure. It sounds like on the 11th, they're going to mandate it, which is crazy. Yeah. They haven't all along. It's okay. So I was allowed to go out in public without one and in businesses without one, but now May 11th, I have to wear one. Come on, man. You don't even making sense. So I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that, but I know one of the exclusions is claustrophobia. So I think I'm going to just pull the claustrophobia and be like, look, you know, if I wear one of these masks, like, I'm just over it.
Have you not seen Alien and that shit sucked to your face? This is what it feels like. It feels like I'm fucking dying.
I've read enough, man. And, you know, I'm not buying an N95 one. So anything under that really doesn't seem to stop a virus. So, so I'm just over that. But I mean, you know, the fam, we're all doing well. New Ethics had a great month, second best in the life of the company. So, and had we not ran out of Cordy's and Metapure, I think we would have actually had a best month. So the business is healthy and doing well in the face of COVID. Which is a big thank to our customers and those who believe in us to bring out good product. Scooby Prep, last week I had to put hirings on hold. I've just been super busy, which again, I'm very, you know, feeling very blessed, and I didn't know how all this was going to go during this time. Brought on 2 new clients yesterday, and a few more have talked to me. I've read labs and kind of told them what they're looking at. So it looks like I've got a few more coming on this week, and I've had some really good reports that I shared a few already on my stories. And I'm going to post a few more this evening on feeds and stuff. So all in all, trying to do my best, trying to make it through it, and trying to stay mentally, you know, on point. So
beautiful summary. Beautiful summary. So I actually went to the grocery store and took Keegan Sunday because Ashley was on a walk, and we wore a mask in, and that's because I think that when the kids go back to school, I'm pretty much banking that they're going to have to wear masks. Is what I'm thinking. So he has been scared to death for his friends that they're going to die of this shit, you know, because he's just hearing what everyone's talking and so forth, because I guess he figured out on the YouTube hole, you know, like that YouTube's an amazing rabbit hole, especially if you use it with marijuana, ladies and gentlemen. But my 9-year-old's not doing that, obviously. So he found some stuff on it. It was just like, oh my God, it just makes you where you just like a zombie and you just, your lungs freeze. And I'm like, that's bullshit. So we went out and walked through the store, and he saw it's still business as usual, except you got to be 6 feet apart and all that. So he was like, well, I thought you said you weren't wearing a mask. I was like, look, man, I own a local business. I got to get along to go along. With me personally, I don't think this mask thing is silly, but if it makes people more comfortable and it gets me back to normal life, unless my gym door is open, then I guess I'm going to suck it up and take one for the team for a little bit and just move forward.
You're a better man than me. It's unconstitutional. I'm not doing
I feel the same way you do, but man, I'm to the point. We'll see, my gym's still closed.
If this was like some flesh-eating bacteria and I saw everyone getting it, I'd be the first motherfucker to like wear a suit, like a rubber suit, and, you know, but come on, man. The numbers just aren't backing.
You can't lose your gains, man.
Would you wear a furry animal though? Like, you know, like one of them, like, you know,
if it was flesh-eating bacteria and it didn't distinguish between healthy and unhealthy, dude, I would wear whatever I had to wear. But
fair. I'm gonna get you like I could picture you as a rabbit. Like
Kentucky, once you take away the deaths from the nursing homes and shit, we've had like 100 deaths, man.
Yeah.
We have 5 million people. It's 0.00007% of dying from COVID.
Yeah. No, more people like are dying from going underneath anesthesia, has a higher risk than dying of COVID. And
getting in a car.
Yeah, I agree.
Daily.
Yeah. But my gym's still closed. Will be closed. It was cool. Over half of our membership base donated to still pay for May. So we managed to meet all our overhead. We haven't laid anyone off. That's been cool to do, and still hold strong. And that's where I find it interesting when the keyboard warriors on social media will be like, oh, you're selfish wanting your business. I'm like, motherfucker, you don't know the first thing about my business. Like, I think
that says a lot about the culture you've built if, you know, half of the people are still willing. I mean, you didn't make them scan their card. You sent out an email and said, hey, if you believe in what we're doing, donate. If you can't, I understand. And I mean, that's pretty big if half of your people still just basically donated, even though it's like them paying their membership.
Yeah. No, and then they're still asking, like, we're doing a new ethics order, you know, pre-ordering stuff and still driving revenue through. So I've been very lucky in that regard. The other thing I've been working on is I started working on that new ethics ninja program with you and stuff. So I'm going to be working with coaches or people who need help with new ethics products to kind of like understand how to properly use them. You know, to be able to grow with a brand, their brand too. So I'm working on that. I'll probably do the first class in about 2 to 3 weeks is what I'm eyeing. So if you're listening, you want to know more about new ethics products, just slide in my DMs, hit me up or Jason up, and they'll put you in my connection with me or Sue. And I'm going to be doing that here soon. And then the other thing was, I decided to jump in the boat. I know Sue's got a business class going on, and then you've got your hormones class, right?
Yep.
Sue, when's your business class?
Well, I sent out the brochure to people. So there were like 5 or 6 people who expressed interest. So they wanted to see what I was offering. So I'm doing it every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
How long is your class?
It's going to be about 2 hours.
Okay, cool. You want to give a little synopsis on it? Because I'll lead into our topics for today. Well, I gotta say too.
Sure. So I just think that, like, you know, when I first started, you know, obviously people who know me, you know, I've been mentored by Jason for a long time, since 2008, really, but not as like a coach. Like, he mentored me just like, you know, kicking my eating disorder, getting into bodybuilding and learning, you know, the right ways to do things. Right. And in the coaching industry, there isn't a lot of that going on. And I feel like I do have a formal business background. I have my MBA from Bentley University in Waltham, Massachusetts. And I also have several years of experience, almost 10 years in corporate finance. So I do have formal training combined with my own experience and combined with, you know, Jason's mentorship as well. So I kind of want to offer that to coaches who are trying to make their statement in the industry. And there's a lot of coaches out there. So how do you become competitive and stand out among the rest?
That's the thing. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm teaching branding and marketing first. Okay. That's the first class. Then second is assessing the competitive environment. So using certain strategic analysis tools that were taught to me in business school. And then it's managing finances, cash flow, income statement, balance sheet, taxes, all that kind of stuff. And the last one is leadership. So those are the 4 components. And I'm teaching the first class probably May 15th, starting like mid-May. So,
sweet.
Yeah.
I decided to take a lead after both of you guys, and me and Laura Conlin are partnering up to do a class on leadership, the deep dives in an online brand, and then building gym culture. So different than what you're doing, which is cool because, you know, there's many different facets to all this in regards to that. And that's something we wanted to talk to you guys about today, is mentorship. It is something that since we've launched this podcast, we have had a lot of questions about, like, you know, from up and coming coaches, even gym pop people who are looking maybe to be inspired to help other people to grow some kind of side business because they're passionate about it. So we figured today we would talk about like mentoring and go towards the business side of this industry that is often lacked being discussed about, which is where we're starting to kind of hold into. And Jason's got a popular phone call. Tell the governor you won't talk to him right now, Jason. He doesn't hear you talking shit about him. So we're going to kick this off talking about our early on mentors. So I'm going to start with Jason, and we're going to kind of go through this chronologically. So we're going to go with our early on, then kind of like a little bit personal. They'll probably bleed into each other. And then we're going to talk about bodybuilding, and then we're going to talk about business. And then we're going to discuss about what you should look for in someone that you want to mentor under, and what that process would look like if you were to want to mentor with a coach to help you build your brand, or 10 classes or seminars or things like that to finish it out. So Jason, let's kick it off, buddy.
So for me, like early mentors, I didn't have brothers or a sister, anyone that was older. All my friends were pretty much my age. So they were more peers. For me, like early influences were really, you know, my parents. And, you know, it's not to say they did everything 100% correct, and I don't think any parents do, but, you know, they did cover a lot of the proper things that I still do today. And, you know, they were big on saving. You know, they were the type of people that they always had a budget. They knew what they could, you know, put out for food, what they could put out to pay their bills. And so I learned saving from an early age, and, you know, I didn't really know that I was getting an education in it, but, you know, I watched it daily, and they didn't make a ton of money, but we always had enough, and we lived a middle-class life. And, you know, when I look back at my dad's salary, he was since I fire department, he worked for the fire department. He was a fireman, he was a lieutenant. And I mean, it is 20 to 30 years ago, but when you look at the salaries, you're just like, wow, how did they like do what they did on those? And it's because they had a budget. And, that's always followed through with me. And then my dad always just taught me, like, education is super important. I mean, my mom was big on that too. Neither of them had a college education, but like they were like big on it. Like that's like, it wasn't even an option for me. Like, you're going to get good grades and you're going to go to college. And, you know, I know things have changed nowadays and a lot of people are down on the college education, but here's the deal with it. you know, it's a piece of paper to get you in the door. You still have to be able to talk right, smile right, dress right, and sell yourself. So when people are like, oh, my college degree didn't get me shit. Well, you know, maybe you need to look at the person in the mirror. My degrees and my high school education always got me in the door. And then I was able to sell myself. So they were right on the education. And to this day, I always, when I want to do something new within my careers, education is what I first look at. It's like, all right, what seminars, what classes, what's available to me, who can mentor me, and how am I going to get this thing rocking? And then lastly, you know, my dad was big on telling me I could be anything I wanted to be. And I know some people are like, you know, there's books out there that don't tell your children that because, they, you know, if they're 5'7", they can't be an NBA player. Well, I mean, you know, I wasn't that dumb, like, but I knew that it meant anything I put my head to and my heart to, that it meant I could do it. And that I heard that nonstop, and I still pass it on to my kids. And so that's kind of what he followed it up with. It was like, anything you put your head to, you can do. And like, it just got ingrained in me. And so whenever I wanted to do anything in life, I just put my head down and did it. And I still to this day am that way. So, you know, for me, it was early on, it was parents. And, you know, I think I was really lucky to have two people that, you know, they weren't perfect marriage by any means, but they stayed together and helped mentor me through the early stages and then sent me to a great high school and all those different things. And I know everybody is not that lucky. So I have to give that type of credit. And those were my first early mentors. We'll get into bodybuilding and then business and different things like that in a minute. And I'll pass the mic to you all.
Sue, what about you early on?
Man, you know, just like Jason said, like my parents too, you know, my parents are both from Taiwan. I was born in a little town called Quincy in Illinois. And so my parents came over here and, you know, attended college at the University of Missouri, and they worked like in the kitchen for a frat house. And they had crazy stories about all that, you know, like frat houses down south back in the time, being Asian, you know, coming over at that time. So one thing that my parents always instilled in me, one lesson or one thing my dad always told me, was that people aren't equal and that we aren't equal. And specifically, he meant that being Asian and being a minority, you are at this is from their own personal experience, right? You are you start at a lower rung on the ladder than white people. And that's just how it is. You're perceived as different. And I've always carried that sort of mindset in my life. And my parents, you know, they worked really, really hard, right? So these are other lessons that I've learned. Like you know, I went to St. John's High School, which is a prep school, Catholic all-boys prep school in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. You know, I went to Bentley University. You know, my parents paid for all this education. This is like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Growing up, we were upper middle class. My dad, I think he was a computer programmer. And back in the 90s, early 90s, he was making about like $150,000 a year, which is really good in the 90s.
Wow. Yeah.
So we, you know, we went to Disney World or whatever every year.
So can I interrupt you real quick? Like in Ohio where I lived, you know, we were, at that time were making like 45. Would that put you still at middle class in Massachusetts back then, or was that upper class? Because that would have been upper class as hell.
We were still middle class, very much middle class.
Easy to me. Go on.
But yeah, we were doing well, and you know, I never really took time to really think about this and put it in perspective as a kid. I took everything for granted, but I did notice that I never saw my dad when I woke up because he had already left for work. And oftentimes I would be like doing my homework at night. This is like in high school, middle school, and he would just come home from work. So he'd work like 12, 14-hour days, whatever he had to do to be able to provide us that lifestyle. And he, you know, wore his clothes until like they had holes in them so that I could buy like J. Crew stuff. You know, like they sacrificed so that my brother and I have a younger brother, we always had everything. And my parents always lived like humbly so that we could have everything. And, you know, thinking about that, like, it makes me emotional, like, right now, thinking about it. And, you know, they just really taught me, like, this is hard. Fuck. I think I was gonna, like...
You probably didn't see that coming.
Yeah, no. Yeah, dude, like, they just taught me, like, sacrifice, man. And they taught me that, like, you always have to, like, you know, you're not going to be equal, but like do the best you can with like what you have. And, you know, being a minority, like that's just like what I've always like taken like you know, as my lesson. Like, that's why I work like so hard. And like, you know, like people like I want like the best, like, you know, body. I want like to grow my business, you know, I want the best car, you know, I want to have like, you know, the best future and stuff. I always want the best, you know. And that was all from my parents. So I got to pause right now.
Go ahead, man. Let Jeff take over.
Yeah. So I had like, I don't know, I guess for me in my childhood, well, it was full of all my surgeries. So I was real close to my mom. I mean, my mom was real big in education. So that's like a cornerstone I share with you guys. She was always like, you know, you got to be smarter than the next person because someone's out there learning more at you at that exact moment. My dad was in special defense contractor, and he was doing Cold War stuff. Worked for a company out in California known as Sparta. He was making over 200 G's in the like late 80s, early 90s, because that was just huge money. I remember dude, it was stupid money. My mom blew through it all, but I didn't really like in my personal. I didn't really have any mentors, man. It was because of my childhood. I kind of was very much out there. I mean, my family, my dad worked hard. He provided. I mean, if it wasn't for, you know, his job, I would not have had the great insurance I did, nor have the ability to go through all the physical therapy I did. So, I mean,
where were you living at the time when he was?
So I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he was
in Tennessee.
He had moved.
That was upper class money then.
Yeah. So he had moved. So middle of June is when I broke my leg on that hill in 1989. He had moved like a month before that to San Diego to take that job. And we were in the process of moving, and we had gone out there and seen stuff. Like I literally just got back from Cali, and then like a week later broke my leg.
Gotcha.
And then once that happened, no doctor would touch me. So for like a long time, it was kind of like I was blamed in the family for the marriage kind of being what the marriage became. So I wasn't really close to anyone. The doctors, I mean, at that age range when I was young, like where you guys were, my mom was quiet, just trying to figure out how to just keep going because it was so demanding taking care of me. I mean, I watch it now with Thera, with Riker, so I'm always harping on Thera, like fucking self-care, you know what I mean? So, but she was real big on the education because she knew I had a disability. She was real big on, you know, always making sure that I had money to provide for myself and make sure that I made good, smart choices. Didn't really teach me finances, was not really a good master of them, but I've learned that over time. But early on, man, I was up against the stack. It was like me against the world because everyone had basically said I wouldn't be able to do anything, and I didn't believe that. So I didn't really have anyone pushing me, shoving me, prodding me along. I didn't have sports. The baseball was taken from me. So it was kind of one of those things. I think I was because of my childhood, I was stunted as an adult. Like I was running a few years behind. So like things I would want to do was not very similar to like what other people do. So like in my late 20s, I was like a big partier where more people were like partying in their early 20s, where I was like working for Homeland Security at the time and like a good little boy in the Angel system. And so I kind of like flip-flopped a little bit. And I think that was because I didn't have an early on influence kind of like pushing me along. So it was always like I just did things my fucking way when I wanted to. And then I got to my 30s and realized that doesn't pay off too well. So it put me at a disadvantage in regards to networking. I really push that on my boys now, like make friends, talk to people, get out there, things like that. You know, everyone who talks about this COVID, like, oh yeah, I love being home. I'm like, yeah, well, that's why you got like probably the life you hate. So you're behind bars. You know, even me, who's I'm an introvert extrovert. You know, I'm extroverted to people who know me, but otherwise I'm just like, just don't look at me and leave me alone. So I have a different take on that. And I think that's, I know some listeners would probably be like me. You didn't really have a positive family or anything like that. And because I was very lost. It was probably bodybuilding is when I started framing out mentors. So with that being said, we'll dive into bodybuilding, and I'll turn it to you real quick, Jason, then I'll go and then we'll let Sue, so I'll give him a little bit of time.
Okay. Well, early on in bodybuilding, like I was thinking about this and trying to figure out like, you know, who was a mentor, you know, and I picked up bodybuilding in college, and, you know, I didn't start it at home really. My dad had been a bodybuilder and he wanted me to lift, and he tried to get me to lift. And we just butted heads and it never worked. And I would do a workout and then I'd quit. And I don't know, it just had to be done on my own time. And I made a decision to play soccer in college. I got recruited. And then that's when I was like, man, this little ass needs to get some muscle behind it. And so I finally, like, I went and joined a gym on my own. I started training, and I just kind of read through my dad's books and did a lot. I really didn't pick up even what I would call a mentor until I did my first show. And really, it was just someone who kind of helped with diet. I still never had anyone that was, like, at that point yet really directing everything in terms of bodybuilding. But there was a guy who owned a supplement store that I frequented. He was doing Masters Nationals. That's where he was at. He had won Mr. Cincinnati. So to me, I'm like, damn, this guy's a badass, you know? And he was doing Masters Nationals, and he never, you know, at the time I look at the pics, and I thought he was just, you know, this shredded, massive dude. But now I look back at him, and he just wasn't coming in hard enough, really. He was getting, like, you know, 7th, 8th, 9th. And when he did my first diet, you know, I think I only got my calipers down to, like, maybe 8% for my show. And, you know, I was kind of disappointed, but, you know, he had helped me, and, you know, I tried my best. And so, you know, he always told me, though, he said, don't let this consume you right now. Get your education, get your financial situation in check, just like you're doing. Stay in school, focus on your job, train, you know, in the evening, and then, you know, just don't let this consume you too early on in your life. He's like, take your time with bodybuilding. And so I did, you know, and he told me he was the believer in, you know, never touching pads until you've maximized your potential, and all those things that he instilled in me. I took on, and I did just that. I went and got my, you know, all my degrees. I went and got my jobs together. In my first year as an attorney working in a corporation, I almost didn't train really at all. I trained a little bit at home on the weekends, maybe one night a week if I got off early enough, but I was the last one to leave with the CEO every night. And, you know, that's how, you know, you build a career. And so that was my first bodybuilding mentor. And then I've had a lot, you know, once online things kicked off, you know, I did a stint with Shelby, which I learned things. I've done, you know, had John Meadows do all my training for a year, and I learned a lot about protecting joints. And I think that helped a lot with my longevity. And those two guys were probably my later people that, you know, I invested in learning from. And, you know, I learned a lot from both of those guys. But I've never had anyone that's really stayed with me, you know, for long term. I've kind of paved my own way and done a lot of reading and a lot of finding. And I think had I probably been able to link up with someone that really, really, you know, stayed around for long term, and maybe that's my own fault, but I think my progress could have been faster. But, you know, I did it my way, and I figured out things as I kind of went. So I think that those of you who seek out mentors early on and can stay with them for years, you're shortening the curve big time for yourself. But I really wouldn't do it another way. Like, that's just how I am. And I'm one of those personalities that I never jump 2 feet into anything. I put my toe in and I test the waters. And then I might put all my pinkies and toes in, and then I test the waters. And now I'm down to my ankle. It's just how I do things. Some people are completely different. They jump all the way in. They got to get as much info as they can and just go balls to the wall. I've just never been that way on anything. I kind of build, and it's just been that way with bodybuilding too.
Yeah. So in high school, I was always in trouble for writing workout programs on my note-taking paper rather than taking notes. I was obsessed with it. So I had a very similar path to you. One thing I'll do is I'll like find something like in regards that I like or someone I relate to. So for me, it was Dorian Yates' work ethic and Lee Priest's style of training. I was very much into that. So a lot of my workouts still to this day are more volume-based with more old school, in quotes, training than anything else. I worked with a coach for a couple of years. He was more just diet and things like that. He was a good person, good guy. It's just he didn't care to, I don't think, really learn anymore. So therefore it was like same as everyone else, the same diet. You know, everyone was on a keto adapted approach. You know, it was just kind of like your typical more T3, more clean, more this, more that. And that's fine. I mean, it works for him. He still does great in business. I'm happy to see that for him. But I ended up merging over to you. And, you know, so you've been my mentor in that regards, and like the nutrition side and teaching me stuff. And, you know, I figured out like my body runs real good on carbs, which, you know, I was like probably most bodybuilders out there, oh, I can't do too many carbs, get fat, you know, and then, you know, I get flat, and then I'm like, oh God, I gotta have McDonald's or some dumb shit, you know, like it's this vicious cycle. But,
yeah, it's just doing it wrong.
yeah, so I didn't nutritionally would be you for my mentor. Of course, reading the books and stuff like that, but you know, there's something different when you could read a book, but then you have someone to kind of explain key concepts to you, key takeaways. It helps you just, and you could go and apply it. It helps the learning curve a lot faster. In regards to working out, I worked out with Meadows a few times, picked his brains, but for me, all my stuff is all learned. I enjoy that part, which is the training of figuring out different tempos, you know, different loads, so forth, and playing around with exercise orders and all that. So, I think that when it comes to the bodybuilding, the best, if you're going to find a coach, you got to find someone that you can mesh well with their personality, like someone that like you're cool with it. And the other thing is your ability to let your ego go, because you're going to work with someone who's going to, if they're a real coach, now like a real coach, not taking your money, they're going to give you, it's not always going to be rosy feedback. You know, sometimes it's going to be filled with thorns. I remember Jason, you was very stern with me one time over one of my check-ins where I was pissed off about something. So, but you know, I was like, yeah, you're right. I was just being a dick because I was hungry. But anyway, so I'm going to pass it over to Sue since that summarizes mine. I'm just like this little lone wolf over here. Like, nah, fuck everybody. I'm in my own little world.
All right. I'm back. I'm not going to cry about bodybuilding.
I was about to say, if you cry over bodybuilding, I'll be like, up your fucking Arimidex, up your Arimidex at this moment.
Take like 10 mgs. No, I don't know where that came from. Just talking about my parents though, man. Like, I think it just like, I had like this like soft spot in my heart or something, like thinking back to my childhood. Man, that fucking got me. But anyway, with bodybuilding, hands down, Jason, you know, like since 2008, you know, he basically just like rescued me off of like pro muscle or like muscular development or something. I was like,
sounds like you went to a puppy mill. I was like, I'll take this one right here.
I was posting my pictures. I was trying to diet down. I bought like a pair of like bodybuilding trunks. I was like, oh, look at me, like 140 pounds. Like, and like, I was just like struggling, right, with like an eating disorder. And, you know, Jason said, you know, let me help you for free for a whole year. And then, you know, if you want, you know, I can coach you. And I think at that point, Jason, like you had what, like maybe like 3 to 5 clients who had just started out?
It's hard to remember, probably 10, you know, like it wasn't a lot. Right? Yeah. Early 2008. Yeah. So maybe 10. It's hard to remember, but it wasn't a huge business yet.
Yeah. You were still the lawyer back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
And, you know, from the get-go, I want to say that, you know, you never pushed me towards the stage and said, oh, you know, I want to get you here. It was all about like, just getting me healthy. And you asked me like what I wanted to do with my body. And I remember I was like, I just want to be like 180 pounds and like bench like 185 for 5 or something.
And no roll on your stomach when you sat. Like you were so into like your skin when you sat. I'm like, dude, you're killing me.
And then like, you know, from the beginning, you know, Jason like always like was very balanced, was very, you know, in terms of like mental health and emotional health, you were always like pushing that even back then. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, one of the coolest things thinking back on it was like, you never like looked at me like some coaches will like kind of scoop up like clients who they think have a lot of potential, right? Yeah. So they can use that to market themselves and their coaching ability. And like, looking at me, if you guys saw these pictures I was posting, nobody's going to be looking at my pictures and saying, wow, this guy's going to be Mr. Olympia one day. Let me scoop him up and coach him for free. Right. Like Jason just wanted to help.
Yeah, and you were in a bad way. And I'm just like, man, I can really like help you here, man.
Yeah. So like, and through the years, you know, since 2008, you know, we talked about like, you know, business. We talked about, you know, me, like what I wanted to do in school, after school, grad school, you know, like other stuff in life. And so all that just kind of like provided like this balanced view about how bodybuilding fits into my life and not how I can make my life fit into bodybuilding. And that's always been like what I kind of took from you. So very appreciative of that.
For sure. For
sure. All right. You guys want to touch on anything? I don't think we got all that for bodybuilding. I don't think we missed anything out.
I didn't give credit to some of like nutrition principles and, you know, you guys, Jeff, you touched on that. And I I always got to give credit to Vince on some of the nutrition stuff. You know, him and I had an agreement with each other when we went into business. I was going to help him on the prep side, and he was going to help me on the functional medicine side. And, you know, we've been doing that since we went into the business together, like late 2016 or early 2017. And it's had a big impact on the direction my growth went in terms of being able to help more people. He knew that I was frustrated with certain clients I'd get and not being able to help them and not knowing what was going on with their body. The more I listened to him talk, and, you know, he was already using my Slintrol and my Suppress, which were my products I had made from Natty Nutrition. So I had an idea of some things that were going on in the body, but I just hadn't put it all together. And he's like, oh yeah, I use this here and I use this here. And like, this is what's going on. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, that's why I made that, but I didn't really understand that it didn't trickle down to affect that too. And so that led me to go to the Great Lakes Conference that Nutridyne puts on, which is an amazing functional medicine conference each year that I go to with Vince and his team. And then it led me down to get a certification under a functional medicine doctor, Charles Sefcek. We went over inflammation, gut health, reading labs, the whole endocrine system and how hormones kind of play off each other. And so, you know, and to this day, when I get a complicated case, I still ask Vince questions because I just don't know everything. And he's someone that reads something and seems to just retain it once. I usually got to read something twice and then I got it. And that's pretty quick. But so he's helped me a lot and just kind of pushed me towards a direction where I'm a better coach. And I like to call it a hybrid coach, meaning, yep, I can still get you shredded for your shows, but if something goes wrong with your hormones, I can fix that too. And, you know, that's where I've been kind of, you know, helping you guys kind of get to as well. And I think it's the wave of the future for our profession. And I'm going to stand by that. And Vince played a big role in getting me in that direction. So to not mention him in terms of when I talked earlier, I was talking about bodybuilding in terms of getting on stage and building my physique, but in terms of nutrition, he played a big role. And then Dr. Sefcek helped me a lot too. So I would be remiss to not mention those guys on that term, but I also have a couple business mentors too when we go over that I can mention as well.
Big thing to take away, which is I think that people need to have a key takeaway always, would be when you're working with a mentor or you have a mentor, you're in their network. Yes. So you are understanding their network, you're getting their network downloaded onto you, and with that comes data extrapolation. So that's why, you know, people, when they're going through the mentoring process, I guess maybe like you have a mentor program, I have a mentor program, Sue has a mentor program. And we don't really go out there and blast it because it's one of those deals. You don't really have to sell. If people want to get with you, they'll get with you. Yep. But it's one of those deals where we're all impacted by each other. So because of you, I know stuff from Vince, you know, and, you know, I've gotten to know Austin Stout over time, so I can message him. But one thing that's really helped me is whenever I read a book, I try to pretend that author is mentoring me personally when I read that book. So like, I really try to, you know, Cortisol Connection, that author, yeah. I was just like sitting there, like pretend like he's teaching me all about cortisol and how it binds more to the belly and blah, 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 blah. So that's like a little hack I've done. And that leads me into business. So I'll start with this one.
Okay.
I haven't had any business mentors in that regard. So the gym has pretty much been kind of like my learning curve per se. When all my mentoring has been done through books. So John Maxwell has been my mentor, but he doesn't know it. So it's all about leadership and things like that. Like I pass ideas off and things like that, but I don't know anyone in my circle who owns a gym. And then usually gym owners won't talk to other gym owners because they're afraid of them knowing some secret sauce bullshit or whatever, which is total garbage. You know, like the egos come out. And we all know that in the online coaching world, you know, you can pick people's brains and then they'll only go so far before they'll be like, hey, yo, blah, 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 which I get. So for me with the mentoring, I have kept a list of things like I've done. Like, so I have a goal list. And that book is like a mentor to me. So I set my goals out for the year and I follow up with them and so forth. Now, with that being said, I have begun expanding my network and looking for someone to mentor me in business, like so I can understand how to scale Iron House, because I don't understand how to scale a gym. Like I do know how to build a culture, obviously, but I don't know how to scale finances and this and that, and the finer nuances. So what I did was I got invited to a local leadership group, which I was talking about before COVID broke out. How I'm going to begin my mayor run that starts with city council first. But so I broke into that network. I have my interview with them tomorrow, and from there, I'm in there with bank owners, people who are heads of the hospitals and so forth. So I'm able to get around people who like lead more than 20 people like I do. They lead hundreds of people and have to make big budget decisions and decide who really sits on the bus better than I have to. So I stepped outside my realm for that so I could be able to, I guess, glean some information off of all different levels, and hopefully with any luck, find someone that I mesh well with who wouldn't mind meeting me every so often for coffee. I know that that's what I do with my coaches. I know Ashley does that in her role now because she kind of slid into that role with the team where she'll go out to coffee or chit chat with the coaches every so often just to see how they're doing, see how you can mentor them and things like that. But in business, it pretty much has been myself just learning and being real cool about the idea that I'm going to have to fail a lot to figure this out. And I think that that's where a lot of people screw up in business. They're so afraid of failure and they try to chase perfection. And I'm like, no, just repeat the process daily, chase excellence, and you'll get there. Has been some of the things for me. But Sue, I'm going to turn it over to you on business. I know that Jason's taught you some stuff, but I know you have a hell of a background in business too. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not directly, about coaching, but I was, lucky enough to spend a big portion of my life in corporate finance and specifically in retail and in healthcare. And so I was able to observe how, large companies were run down to their business units, down to like individual cost centers within the corporate environment, and how each individual leader of those cost centers would manage their own department and manage the budgeting and the forecasting and all that kind of stuff. So I knew I had a pretty good framework of how businesses should be run. And of course, I had my formal MBA education that, all of that was like sort of like a mentorship as well. Right. But in terms of like just strictly coaching, a lot of that came from Jason, just watching Jason grow his business over time. Since, like I mentioned earlier, I was one of his like first, 10 clients, let's say. And so I watched every step that he did, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I kind of want to do this one day. And so, I focused obviously on my own personal growth and personal bodybuilding goals so I could master myself first. And then I got to a point where I could help other people. But really it was just watching him. And then, I watched a lot of stuff like watching other people online doing the right things and doing the wrong things and seeing how people would react. I think part of why I was able to grow First Call Out Fitness so quickly was because of social media. Like Jason, you didn't have that back when you started. You had the message boards.
Correct.
So it was a lot slower. It was a lot more organic. Now on social media, you post something, it can go off like wildfire and just spreads. And one thing I want to add to that is that prior to me becoming, the person who I am today, as many people know me, I was someone completely more like, I don't know how to say it. Like, oh God, like I was a fire starter on social media. I would post some really offensive things like to all groups of people and just like say things just to like troll people and like get things going. Right. And a part of that still exists inside of me today. Like I like to joke and I'm a very blunt and direct person, but I've learned to kind of reel that in and use it productively. But the fact that I did that got a lot of attention to my social media. So people were like, what the fuck is Jeff going to post today? Like, what is he going to talk about? Like, so people, maybe it's the algorithms or something, but people like started to like follow me. Right. So once I made that switch to offering information, I already kind of had like an audience and a platform, and then people sort of forgot, or I think most people have forgotten about like how I used to be. But
dude, there are some days you still get a little chippy on those comments. I'm like, Sue, bad boy.
But trial and error, man. That trial and error, and then Jason really has been my mentors in business.
Jason's an easy person to role model after because what Jason says makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not complex. It's pretty straightforward. It is your core principles. This is how you just handle your business. This is how you do your business. this is how you manage your money. It's pretty simple.
And I don't think he alienates any group of people, Jeff, either. I think, Jason, you have an appeal to a wide group of individuals in the fitness world, which is
well, with his not wearing a mask, he's going to piss off a lot of people sooner or later.
Those
But otherwise,
those people probably weren't going to work with me anyways.
Yeah, they probably weren't going to work with you anyways. Let's just keep that real. So, Jason, we'll turn it to you on the business side because you have an extensive background too.
Yeah. So, just to give a little bit of my business background, I got out of law school. Well, before I went to law school, I was a stock trader with Fidelity. I had a Series 7 and 63. And I could have made a full career out of that. I was on, a good track there to get into retirement investments and different things. And I thought that lit my fire, but I really kind of didn't like their business model. It was a lot of phone and, just wheeling and dealing and trade after trade, just beeping in your ear. And after a year of doing that, I just wasn't feeling it. So I went to law school. Out of law school, I worked for the government. I did white collar crime. I'd go into unions and I had to audit them. And so they did not like me because I was trying to find theft from their treasurer. And the boss and I of that group didn't get along. She was a micromanager and I don't do micromanaging. Like, give me a task, let me run with it. But if you micromanage me, we're going to butt heads. And so that whole year, her and I butted heads. While I was doing that, I was also practicing law on the side because I already had my law degree. I was helping small businesses, and I put in a resume to get in corporate house counsel. I had no experience at a law firm. I really had no business probably getting the job, but I sat down with the guy who owned it. We had breakfast at First Watch. Turned out he was a Sigma Chi, so was I in college. We did the stupid little handshake. We had exchanged some funny college stories. And I just knocked the interview out. And he said, you know what? I'll give you 6 months, 60 days to prove your worth. Here's your salary. And if you do, then I'll bump you another 10K and let's see how it goes. And that was history. And he became, someone that I watched. He built about a $50 million conglomerate of companies from selling Valpak, which are mailer inserts, out of his station wagon. And, that was pretty cool to see someone self-made. And I learned some pretty good principles from him. And, one of them was don't be afraid to get dirty with your people. So if someone had to go out and dig fences at one of his places, he usually would ride his truck and go over and dig fences. He also taught me don't go into business with someone who's not fairly liquid. If they can't put money into the business, don't take sweat equity from them. It's going to be a bad deal. Get money or don't take the partner and make sure that they're liquid. He also taught me that don't start a business and think that you're going to be taking money back out of it. You better have enough money from other parts of your life so that you can reinvest in that business. And we've done that with New Ethics. We've taken back our initial investment, but other than that, we just keep bringing out new products and reinvesting in our company. I also applied the fact that when Vince and I sat down, I was blunt with him and I said, how much are you making? And then what do you got in the bank? And I told him me as well. And I said, all right, well, then we can be partners. So those things have worked well for me because then I knew I had a business partner that didn't need to drain the company as well to live. Very important principles. Bob, the guy I worked for, he only used his real estate to pay his bills. He didn't take any money out of any of his companies. And these are $1 million companies. And he had a shit ton of real estate, but all of what he used to pay his bills was from the rental from his real estate. So it was really cool to kind of see those things. And I've used those in business to this day. And, I always had to file, whenever we had a new business idea, it would be, Jay, check the website, check the trademarks. And to this day, I do the same thing. Like, don't come up with them business ideas and then don't check that you can get a trademark for it and you can get a website for it. So all these things I got to see an entrepreneur who was a real entrepreneur apply these things. It just so happened I had a law degree that I was able to then further, take his ideas down the line. So it really helped me in starting all my different businesses to be around someone who started out of a station wagon and built, $50, $60 million conglomerate of companies. So I was lucky to do that. I worked there almost 15 years. It kind of got to the point where he could tell my business kept growing And I was putting more and more effort into that and not as much effort anymore into his companies. And when that happens, you know, I get it. Why would you pay someone? And so he had asked me to go off salary, work from home, and just bill him hourly. We agreed to a nice hourly salary. It was $250 an hour. And it got to the point where it was more of a pain. Like, I was so into my nutrition business. I went all in, got more certifications. And when they would send me these little piddly projects that would make me, you know, $1,600 that I'd bill him for the month, it wasn't worth my time anymore. And I told him and explained why, and he understood and wished me well and was happy to see it. The last thing he taught me: surround yourself by people that are more intelligent than you. And, you know I did that with marriage. My wife is definitely more intelligent than me. But I try to always surround myself with people that are more intelligent than me. And then, you know, if they do something well, I acknowledge their win. I don't try to take credit for it. I try to acknowledge their win. So those are some things I learned from him. I'm sure there was others, but those stick out to me. And I was really fortunate to get that education and be paid for it. Can't hear you, Jeff.
I said one of the big things I like to talk to people about is the circle of five. Mm-hmm. The 5 closest people to you show you. That is a true thing, especially in business, you know, and I learned that early on with my business partner and stuff like that, and just different things along the way. What was his take? So when you left doing what you were doing, the corporate world, to jump into this, how much support did you have when you went full time? Was it just a seamless transition? You just quit wearing a suit one day, or was it?
What do you mean by support?
Like just from your friends, colleagues, people like that. I mean,
okay,
things like that.
I mean, Steph had been telling me to do it for years because, I mean, I'm just a very practical guy, and I wanted like 10 years of data showing my business going up. And she kept saying, look, man, we don't need the legal salary. And I knew in my heart we didn't, but it was secure. And I wanted to make sure that coaching was definitely on an upward swing, not just a phase. And so I had her support from day one because she knew how stressed I was. I mean, it was tough to handle 100 clients and then still help a $50 million legal or $50 million conglomerate of companies daily. So, but my friends were supportive as well. They knew, you know, my close friends knew how well we were doing with our businesses. My parents, I wouldn't say they pushed back, but they were a little like, oh man, now our son, the lawyer, is just our son, the bodybuilder, who helps people online do diets. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what they still tell people because they were always so proud of the fact that I was, you know, corporate counsel for this big, you know, privately held company. And, you know, they liked telling people that, I think, because, you know, as parents, you want your kids to be successful and you invest in that. And so they had invested in that and I had become successful. You know, I don't know if it matters to them that I make way more income doing what I'm passionate about now rather than something that I just was kind of lukewarm on because, you know, telling people that your son's a nutrition coach online doesn't sound as good as corporate counsel. So I don't know what they still tell people, but they've come around and they understand that this is my passion and that we're building an excellent life for ourselves. Financially, it made more sense just all around, but there was still kind of that like, are you sure you're really going to do that? Yeah. But everyone else was really supportive. And like I said, today they're totally supportive. They get it, but they were kind of on the fence about it.
Well, I can understand that, the parent side. That was how it was for me. So when I left high school, I was pre-med, and then I decided to just go on this like little wild side journey, and then ended up going and work for Homeland Security. And then that was like, you know, because my grandma was USPS for like 40 something years. So it was like, oh, you got yourself a steady, secure job. And after 5 years, I was like, because I couldn't stand the leadership in Department of Homeland Security. Like I started writing about that, my leadership stuff I've been writing about. And it was just, I loved the mission, but I fell out of love with the vision. Like it was cool to like go do Homeland Security and be a part of something like that, but the vision of where it was going and what it was really being were just something I didn't line up to. And I enjoyed coaching people more. It was cooler to, you know, and I was like, well, if I make less money, at least I'll be happier doing it. It was kind of like my, you know, thought process to myself. But, you know, I think the one thing we could probably all say here is that when we told people what we were going to do full time, that you do get a little bit of a brush up, and people don't mean it in a bad way, but people be like, are you sure this is a good call? And I'm like, well, people are getting fatter in America, like, and disease is steadily progressing. I think I'm going to be fucking job security. Like,
well, people have no idea if you're a good coach and you know, are well leveraged in the industry, what kind of, you know, income you can make. You know, I think they think you're going to struggle. And I'm sure there are a lot of coaches who haven't hit the magic formula, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people kind of like, you know what I mean? I get it. I mean, it's
what the magic formula is you find people who've done it and then you go learn underneath them.
Oh yeah.
Because they're going to give you some nuggets to take away for you to mold into yours. Yeah. And that's something that the industry, I think, could get better at, our industry. Because you don't ever see coaches come out and saying like, well, I worked with this guy and he taught me this. It's normally like, I worked with this coach and they sucked, you know, or something like that. Or you don't hear anything at all. And I'm like, well, I know you didn't think of that because I know someone else who'd said it 5 years ago on this board, blah, blah, blah. But I think being encouraging to share your journey and share the people who influenced you, because that just brings it back to you, is what I've always noticed. You know, whenever I teach my coaches stuff about dieting, I reference you all the time, you know, or some of the hormone stuff, Vince. You know, I'm like, yeah, well, it's kind of like off from Vince. But with that being said, you guys have anything else we want to part out that we might not have gotten into? I know the three of us each do mentoring.
Yeah. So I don't know that I'm going to fire mine back up for a while. I was set to start back up in June. I was going to take 10 people, but I'll be honest with you, man, there's so many people out there that need help, like just getting their gut and healing, that I'm super, super swamped. I don't know that I could do a mentorship do justice right now. So I think I'm going to stick to my classes because, you know, I can set those and then I don't have to, I can set them when I want. Rather, when it's a mentorship, man, you've got to be running it every month. There's lectures and there's people checking in because I'm helping them with their people. And so I'm not sure that I'm going to run mine back for a minute, but I do have one. It's 9 months long and you can certainly inquire about it and get on a list. But right now, I don't think I'm going to run it in June, just FYI.
I do mine more like a Q&A. So people just pay me for my time where they can, you know, if they want to say, for example, they're like, hey, Jeff, next week I'd like to talk about this. Then I'm like, cool. And I'll prepare and I'll talk about it and present and go over that kind of stuff. Or, you know, it's just they can have time to ask me whatever they want to ask me because every week it seems to change, or help them with their clients or so forth. Sue, what's your take on how you handle the mentoring?
Well, I mean, I tried a pilot program. It was like last summer, and I had two coaches or two people who wanted to be coaches do it. However, it didn't work out for a variety of reasons. And looking back on it, I'm glad I tried it. But I think for my business model right now and where I'm taking things, I think it's best if I just maintain like my own vision and have full control of First Call Fitness. My thing now has been like teaching classes that's sort of come up since this whole COVID-19 thing. And so I taught several SIBO classes, and now I'm moving on to the business classes, which are, you know, kind of like mentorships, but it's sort of like me just sharing in a lecture format what I've learned and, you know, having a Q&A at the end so people can just take it and kind of run with it afterwards. The only thing I would add about mentorship is like, if you're someone who wants to get into coaching or any business really, the value of having a mentor and having someone like recount their steps and teach you to avoid the same pitfalls is like, it's literally like priceless. And if you have to pay for it, I highly, strongly encourage you to pay for it. Find some way to rearrange your budget and put your money there if it is really important to you. Because knowledge, in my opinion, knowledge, while it's meant to be shared, it doesn't always come free, okay? Because a lot of people have invested many, many years and years obtaining this knowledge through relationship building and paying for books, paying for classes and seminars. And no one's just going to hand that to you, right? And there's just too much information to just hand over in a simple Facebook message, you know? So you should invest in building that relationship with someone you respect and pay them for their time and their knowledge and their expertise, because what you're going to do with that knowledge is then charge a potential client, and you would hope that the potential client sees your value and will pay you for what you've learned, right? So it's a two-way street with this respect thing. Okay, so I want people to kind of understand.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good final point.
Yeah, no, that is a good final point. So I'm going to wrap it up. Jason, when's your upcoming hormone class?
May 17th. I've had 7 signups. I usually do 10, but last time there were so many people that I just kept saying, all right, fine. I did 14 and it worked. So I'll do anywhere from 10 to 14, but here's the deal with it. I've got 7. If I don't get 10, this will be the last time I do the hormones, and I'm going to move on to all my gut protocols. But if I get 10 and people are still asking, I'll run another one. So that's where I'm at. You can email me to get the brochure and read about it and see if it's something that you're interested in.
Fair. Sue, your business class is every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday. I think starting May 20th. So in a couple weeks. That'll be the first class.
Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, I love business, man. It's going to be really fun to talk about it.
I am doing, Lauren and I are doing June 2nd. It's a Tuesday, and we're doing 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central. Nice. If you're interested in that, feel free to hit me up with a message, or Lauren herself. It'll be with Lauren Conlon. We're going to try to do that once a month. We're going to keep it intimate, 6 people, so we can really break down like the whole leadership, because leadership is something that's more intimately talked about, I think, than, broad based, because that's where people get all confused on the leader. I'm like, there's a lot more that goes into it than that. But and then otherwise, if you guys like the podcast, be sure to share it. Leave us a review. We're doing good. We're slowly getting there. And then next week we have a cool guest coming on. So one question that we get is like, how do we grow our social media? Well, Sue and I are later to the game for IG, and Jason's a pro, so he kind of just gets all them like followers from that. But I decided, there's a good friend of mine, Chris Casey, who I know on social media, and he actually helps entrepreneurs grow their IG and their social media.
I'm looking forward to that. You can always learn. That's cool.
Yeah, and I thought that would be great. So he's going to take time out of his day to come chit chat with us about it. I know we've had questions before, especially with ladies. Sue brought it up in the thread where we were talking about this idea about, when women have to kind of like the line between sex appeal and being taken seriously, right, as an authoritative figure in what they're trying to teach in regards to, their craft. So I'm real interested to see where he breaks this down and goes over. I've already got questions lined up for him. So, but that would be a good one. And then we had that doctor on Cybo cancel. But what we're going to do is we'll try to find another one. I know Jason's got contacts, but he's been busy. So we'll just give him a little bit of time to see if he knows another doctor he might be able to reach out to. Or we might reach out to the mighty Vince Pitstick and bring him back on, and maybe do a deep dive on Cybo. But that one's coming up. And next week we'll be all over social media. But if you guys have any topics you guys like for us to hit, feel free to hit us up about it. And in the meantime, be sure to check out our classes. I think that they're all going to be, this is going to be something that, like Jason said, the industry's changing. And I wrote about this today about gyms. Gyms are going to change. The coaches inside the gyms are going to change. Those who are versed in a functional model, who can work integrated medicine and integrated nutrition and all that together, are going to be the ones who go to the top, because I think in 10 years going to be more working with teams. You're going to have doctors, you're going to have nurse practitioners on these teams. And if you want to be taken seriously, you got to know what you're talking about. Because we already understand that there's that, I guess, for lack of a better word, that hubris curve you've got to overcome in the medical field. So right now is the time to learn all this stuff and get educated and get armed for the upcoming changes that we all predict are probably going to happen in this industry in the next 10 years or less.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, when I talk about that, I'm not saying that you can't be someone who carves out just a prep business, but the thing is, there's just only so many competitors, and it kind of takes getting those 1 or 2 really gifted guys or gals a couple times and then run it back. I don't know, man. Like, I just see that the amount of education that some coaches are pushing out, if you don't have that type of education, you're going to struggle. You're going to be left competing for just physique competitors. And that's a hard nut to crack completely and run a business that can support yourself financially on its own.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Do you guys have anything else to like wrap out? Anything nice?
No, I think it was, a pretty good episode on mentorship. And I think they can see that, we all have successful coaching businesses, and it's because we have linked on with people in our lives that were able to give us nuggets to build our businesses.
And that's the one thing with the PEC, whenever we could get back to fucking
I can't wait. I love it.
That was one thing we wanted to do with the PEC, was the original idea of, there'd be a core group of coaches that presented in the beginning to get it kicked off and moving. But as time evolved, we were going to rotate new coaches on and give new coaches a chance to be seen, be heard, and bring credibility to their brand and partner with our brand, because we all understand synergies. So it's one of those deals that if you might spend $5,000 for a mentor over the course of a year, you're going to make 10 times that back the following year if you apply it correctly. I believe that. Every book that I've ever read, for example, I know that I've gotten at least the $20 value of every book I've ever purchased, or whatever the costs are. So just kind of keep those kind of notes, guys. You got to spend money to make money. And there's nothing more powerful than a mentor in the network, because they'll just save you time. So you all have yourself a good day. I'm off to drink fucking Miller Lights.
Ride a bull.
Dude, I'm not doing that. No, it's so great. My favorite place, JB's, like right down the hill. I can't go to, but I'm literally going a mile up the street to Cinco de Mayo, and I'm just going to meet the guys there, and we're going to do Cinco de Mayo, Taco Tuesday and Cinco de Mayo.
Hey,
so
man,
I'm not checking in.
At least you have an open bar. Like we don't have any restaurants or anything open yet.
Yeah, dude, I think this crazy stuff. And then someone just hit me with, while I was doing this podcast, while fucking my phone for a minute, someone hit me where the mayor came out today in Nashville and was like, yeah, no, we're doing the safe thing, you know, this social distancing and keeping non-essential business closed. I'm like, so this asshole's already setting us up to be closed again in the next couple of weeks. But
yeah, he is.
You know, though, I think what they're doing, in my opinion, is I think it's because the left's doing one thing and the right's doing the other, and it's pissing off someone in the middle like me. I'm like, I don't really give a shit about either side. I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal, and I just want you all to figure this shit out, get along, and go back to life. You guys are acting like fucking children at this point.
Yep.
And that's why I want to run, so I can just sit up there and lecture them one day and be like, you are a fucking child. And I'll just be dropped. Like, they think Trump's press conferences are great. I would like blow the fucking doors off that shit in Nashville, Tennessee. I'd be like, you're fucking stupid. Don't ask me that fucking question again. And then Keegan's like right behind me as I'm dropping that bombs. Good thing he's playing that Fortnite though. All right, guys. So y'all take care, and I'll catch y'all later.
See y'all. Bye.
Bye.